Stop waiting for tomorrow. Life won't wait for you. There are things we all know, deep down, but pretend not to. We live as if time is infinite, as if tomorrow is guaranteed, as if we're promised another chance to try to fix to begin. But here's the truth, it's not. Time is not waiting for you. It never has. And one day you'll look back stunned by how fast it passed, how many moments you traded for fear, for doubt, for distractions that never really mattered. You might not want to hear this, but you need to, because the alternative is far worse: regret. Regret that comes too late. In this journey, we'll confront 7 brutal truths, and each one is a door to something greater: clarity, strength, and peace. These truths come from Stoicism, not as cold philosophy, but as a torch in the darkness. Lessons tested by emperors, soldiers, and everyday people who faced the fire of real life. So take a breath. This might not be easy, but the next few minutes could change everything if you let them. Let's begin. Truth 1: you are not procrastinating tasks, you're postponing your life. Have you ever told yourself, "You'll start tomorrow"? Tomorrow it'll get serious. Tomorrow you'll learn. Tomorrow I'll take care of my body. Tomorrow you'll chase that dream. But tomorrow always moves. And one day you look up and realize you've spent months, maybe years, trapped in the illusion of someday. That's not just delay. That's self-minus betrayal. Seneca said, while we wait for life passes. We always think we have time. But time isn't something you have. It's something you spend. And here's what no one tells you every day you wait. You're not standing still, you're falling behind. Not behind others. Behind who you could have been. So why do we wait? Because we're scared. Scared of failure. Scared of judgment. Scared of not being enough. But the Stoics would say those fears are smoke. They vanish when you walk through them. You think successful people started because they felt ready? They didn't. They started with doubt, with fear, with trembling hands, but they move. And that's the difference. Not talent. Not luck. They didn't wait. You do. Look around. Everyone is waiting for something, a sign, a perfect moment, the right mood, more time, more confidence. But what if this is the sign? What if now is the only moment you truly own? You don't get to rewrite your story later. Life doesn't offer a second draft. You only get one version, this one. So, what's holding you back? Is it perfectionism? The belief that only when you're flawless, prepared, and strong enough can you start? Let me tell you something: perfection is a lie. A trick your mind plays to keep you safe by keeping you stuck. There is no perfect version of yourself waiting in the future. There is only the version that acts flawed, but moving. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That's not morbid. That's power. It means this moment matters more than you realize. Because time doesn't ask if you're ready. It moves with or without you. So picture this. You're old now, sitting alone. A lifetime behind you. What do you see? A list of things you meant to do, but didn't? A story of fear dressed up as patience. Or a life fully lived, even with failures, even with stumbles. You choose that ending now, not later. Not when it's easy. Not when you feel motivated. But now when it's hard. When it's raw. When it counts. The Stoics believe that you're ever really waiting for the right time. You're just avoiding the discomfort of beginning. And the longer you delay, the heavier that burden becomes. Until someday, the weight of what you never started becomes greater than the fear of doing it badly. So let me ask you, what have you been postponing? And what would your life look like if you started today, not tomorrow? Not next week, but now. You don't need a master plan. You need one step, then another, then another. That's how you build momentum. That's how you take back your time. Because in the end, procrastination isn't harmless. It's a thief. It steals your energy, your future, and worst of all, your belief in yourself. So if you're waiting for a sign, this is it. That way to be brave enough. Act. And bravery will meet you there. You're chasing the wrong things, and it's draining your soul. You think you're living. But in truth, you're just existing. Every day feels busy. You wake up, work, scroll, repeat. Maybe there's a sense of progress. Maybe there's noise. But deep down, something feels missing. And the question you've been avoiding creeps in quietly, usually late at night. What am I really doing all this for? Is it for money? Recognition? A title? To prove yourself? To keep up? But here's the catch: what happens when you get it? When you finally make more money? When people start noticing you? When the title is yours? The applause fades. The numbers shift. The goalpost moves again. And you feel that familiar emptiness returning. Because what you're chasing isn't fulfilling you. It's distracting you. Seneca warned us it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. We don't lack time. We lack clarity. We waste our lives scrolling, comparing, reacting, trying to keep pace with a race we never chose to enter. And it's costing us everything that truly matters. The Stoics weren't against success. They weren't against ambition. But they asked one brutal question. Does this align with the kind of person you want to be? Look around. People are drowning in stress not because life is hard, but because they're chasing things that don't align with their soul. They measure their worth in likes, their peace in dollars, their identity in job titles. But when it's all stripped away, when illness comes, when life shifts, when you're forced to face the end, those things won't matter. So, what will? Love, presence, courage, integrity, simplicity. The things that never show up on your resume, but define your life more than anything else. Let me ask you, when was the last time you had a truly meaningful conversation? When was the last time you walked without rushing, just to feel the sun? When was the last time you laughed so hard your chest ached? Not because it looked good on a screen, but because you were fully alive. We trade these moments every day for things that won't last. We sacrifice peace for image. We sell our time for validation. We ignore our soul to serve our ego. And then we wonder why we're anxious, empty, and always searching. Here's the harsh truth: if you're always rushing, always chasing, always reaching, you might be running from yourself. So pause, take a breath, and ask, what truly matters to me? Strip away what society told you to value. Strip away what your parents expected, what your friends admired, what your feed promotes. What remains? It won't be flashy. It won't impress the world, but it will bring peace. Maybe it's time in nature. Maybe it's creating. Maybe it's giving. Maybe it's just being present with the people you love. Don't underestimate these things. They're not small. They're sacred. Epictetus said wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. The less you need to be at peace, the more powerful you become, and the freer you are. So, here's your invitation. Stop living someone else's dream. Stop chasing someone else's version of success. Stop measuring your life in numbers, metrics, or fake applause. Instead, measure it in moments, in alignment, in depth, and how you feel when no one's watching. Because at the end of your life, the question won't be, how much did you earn? It will be, how deeply did you live? And you already know the answer. You just have to stop pretending not to. So what will you choose? A life that looks good? Or a life that feels good? Let go of the past. It's not coming back. You're not stuck because of what happened. You're stuck because you won't let it go. Every time you replay that moment, what they said, what you lost, what you didn't do, you're not healing. You're bleeding all over again. And here's the brutal truth. The past cannot hurt you. Only your attachment to it can. Marcus Aurelius wrote, forget everything else. Keep hold of this alone and remember it. Each of us lives only now, this brief instant. But most people don't live in the now. They live in what minus shifts, in regrets, in alternate versions of the past that no longer exist. And they carry the weight of those moments like chains, dragging them through every new day. Do you think punishing yourself for your mistakes will undo them? Do you think clinging to the memory of what was lost will bring it back? It won't. You're letting a ghost run your life. And every second you spend mourning what can't be changed is a second stolen from what could be created. Yes, you were hurt. Yes, you made mistakes. Yes, things could have been different. But they're not. You can choose to carry that forever. Or you can choose to begin again. This is not about forgetting. It's about releasing the belief that the past owns you. It doesn't. You do. There's a story about a monk who carried a heavy woman across a muddy river. Hours later, his fellow monk was still angry. Why did you carry her? That's against our vows. The first monk smiled. I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her? Some of you are still carrying what should have been put down years ago. A betrayal. A missed opportunity. A version of yourself that no longer exists. And it's poisoning your present. You think you're honoring your past by holding on. But what if the greatest honor is using it to grow, to rise, to choose better? Epictetus said if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. The same applies to memory. If a memory controls you, it's not the memory. It's you giving it permission. And here's the shift. You don't need to rewrite your past. You need to rewrite your relationship to it. Start by asking, what am I still carrying that no longer serves me? What pain am I rehearsing? What guilt am I repeating? What story am I telling myself that keeps me small? Now ask, what would it feel like to let go? Not pretend it didn't happen. Not erase it, but simply release it. Like exhaling, like unclenching your fist, like stepping out of a prison whose door was always open. Because that's what the past is, a place you visit for wisdom, not a place you live. So take one memory you keep returning to. Write it down. Then write what it taught you. Not what it cost you, what it gave you. And let that be enough. Because the longer you argue with the past, the more of your life you miss. You don't get to rewrite what happened, but you get to decide what it means. And that power? That's the beginning of freedom. So stop staring in the rearview mirror. There's nothing new back there. Look ahead. That's where life is. Embrace change or be broken by it. Here's a truth we all know but rarely want to face. Nothing stays the same. Your body will change. The people you love will change. Your job, your home, your routines, everything you cling to will eventually shift, fade, or disappear. And yet, most people live as if the world owes them permanence. We want our happiness to stay locked in place, our comfort to remain untouched, our routines to stay predictable. We resist even the smallest tribble. But Stoicism begins with this foundation. Everything changes. Everything ends. Marcus Aurelius wrote, observe constantly that all things take place by change. The universe is changed. Our life is what our thoughts make it. You see, change is not the enemy. Our resistance is. We fear the unknown. We mourn what is lost. We panic when our plans unravel. But what if we saw change not as destruction, but as the very force that keeps life alive? Imagine this. You plant a seed. You don't cry when the seed breaks open. You don't mourn when it stops being a seed. Because you know that break was necessary. Without breaking, it can't grow. Without change, it can't bloom. Yet in our own lives, we fight this natural process. When a relationship ends, we call it a failure. When a job shifts, we feel betrayed. When life surprises us, we panic. But look closer. Most of your growth came from the unexpected. The heartbreak that made you stronger. The move that opened your doors. The loss that made you appreciate what truly matters. Change, even when painful, has always been your greatest teacher. Let me tell you a story, a real one. There was a woman named Leela. She had the life she had planned, a stable job, a quiet marriage, a small house in the suburbs. She didn't love it, but it was safe, predictable. Then, one day, her husband walked out. No warning. Just gone. And everything she had built collapsed. For 6 months, she couldn't get out of bed. Friends told her to move on. She couldn't. She was clinging to a version of her life that no longer existed. Until one day, she walked to a lake near her home. She sat down, barefoot in the grass, and wrote a single sentence in her journal. This isn't the end. It's the turning. That was the day her life began again. Not because the pain disappeared, but because she stopped fighting reality. She leaned into the change. She learned photography. She traveled. She smiled again. She built a life that was planned but was deeply alive. And it all started with a choice: resist and suffer, or accept and rise. This is the stoic path. It doesn't mean pretending change doesn't hurt. It means not letting pain make you bitter. It means using loss as fuel. It means seeing every ending as the start of a new chapter. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, soon you will have forgotten the world, and soon the world will have forgotten you. At first glance, that's harsh. But really, it's freeing. Because once you stop demanding permanence, you stop being a victim. You stop expecting people to stay the same. You stop needing life to follow your plan. And you start living with adaptability, the superpower of the stoic mind. So let's talk practically. How do you train for change? How do you become the person who doesn't break when the winds shift? Here are 3 stoic practices to begin now. 1. Negative visualization. The Stoics called it premedit adi omalo rum, premeditation of evils. Every morning, imagine one thing going wrong. Not to be morbid, to be mentally prepared. What if your train is late? What if your partner leaves? What if your job disappears? Sit with it. Feel it. Then ask, how would I respond? This doesn't make you anxious. It makes you ready. Because the person who rehearses adversity doesn't fear it. They walk through it like they've been there before. 2. Daily surrender. Write down one thing you're clinging to. One expectation. One attachment. Now practice letting it go just for today. Say it out loud: even if I lose this, I will be okay. You don't need to believe it fully. You just need to loosen the grip. Do this every day. You will be shocked how much lighter you feel. Because most suffering isn't from loss. It's from the refusal to let go. 3. Reframe disruption as training. Every disruption in your day is a chance to grow. A traffic jam? Patience training. An argument? Ego training. A canceled plan? Adaptability training. Your entire life becomes a stoic gym where every moment is building your resilience. And here's the secret: once you frame change as training, it stops feeling like punishment. It becomes purpose. Now pause. Think about something that recently changed in your life, something that hurt. What did you lose? And now, ask, what did it teach you? If the answer is nothing, look again. Because every change carries a message. And if you refuse to receive it, life will keep repeating the lesson until you do. So stop waiting for the old version of your life to return. It's gone. But what comes next, that's in your hands. You are not a leaf blown by the wind. You are the tree that bends but doesn't break. You are the river that flows, not the stone that resists. You are the mind that adapts, not the one that clings. Because deep down, you don't want things to stay the same. You want to grow. You want to rise. You want to feel alive again. And the path to that version of you? It begins where resistance ends. So if change is knocking on your door, don't slam it shut. Open it. Let it in. And say, let's begin. Control yourself, not the world. You can't control the weather. You can't control other people. You can't control the economy, the news, or the past. But here's the thing, you keep trying to. You obsess over outcomes. You replay conversations. You stress over what minus is. You get angry when people don't behave the way you expected. And exhausted when the world doesn't align with your plan. You know what that is? It's mental warfare. But it's not against the world, it's against reality. And guess what? Reality always wins. The Stoics called this the great mistake, trying to control what was never ours. Epictetus said happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle: some things are within our control, and some things are not. Simple? Yes. Easy? Not at all. Because the modern world trains you to believe the opposite. It tells you that if you hustle hard enough, optimize enough, manifest enough, you can bend the world to your will. But that's a lie. And worse, it's a lie that keeps you anxious, bitter, and drained. Let's break it down. You can't control other people's opinions. No matter how kind, how smart, how successful you are, someone will dislike you. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will judge you unfairly. But you don't need to convince them. Your peace is not a vote. It's not earned by approval. It's earned by clarity. Stop trying to manage their perception. Manage your own integrity. You can't control outcomes. You can do everything right. Train hard. Work smart. Love deeply. And still, things can fall apart. Life is not an equation. It's not a vending machine. You don't insert effort and get guaranteed results. And if you expect that you'll always feel betrayed, the Stoics say focus on your input, not the outcome. Control the quality of your action, not the reward it brings. Because your action is yours. But the result? That's never been yours to command. You can't control the chaos of the world. The economy will rise and fall. Leaders will disappoint you. The media will always have something to panic about. And people will do things you don't understand. So ask yourself, am I spending my life reacting to a world I can't control? Or am I directing my energy inward to the one domain that is truly mine? Because that's the shift. From external control to internal command. From outrage to inner order. From fighting the tide to learning how to swim. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man, 27 years old. Smart. Driven. He had a plan. He was going to launch a business, get married, buy a house. Everything was lining up. Then, in a single year, it unraveled. His fiancée left. The business failed. His best friend died. He tried to fix it. Called everyone. Made spreadsheets. Tried to rebuild. Nothing worked. One day, he broke down in his car, screaming into the steering wheel. And when the rage was gone, he sat there silent, empty. Then he remembered a single line from Epictetus. Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. He drove home, opened a notebook, and wrote one question. What is still mine? That question saved him. He began each day with it. And slowly, he rebuilt not the life he wanted, but the one he could own. He cowed and changed the past. He cowed and forced others to stay. But he could build habits, strengthen his mind, guard his peace. And in time, something strange happened. He no longer needed the world to agree with him. Because he had stopped needing control. And in doing so, he found freedom. You can too. But first, you have to stop fighting shadows. You have to stop spending your energy where it produces nothing but suffering. Here's how you begin. Step 1, draw 2 circles. In the first circle, write down everything that's stressing you right now. People, situations, outcomes, opinions. In the second circle, write only what's within your control. Your actions, your attitude, your effort, your response. Now compare the lists. How much of your life are you spending on the first circle? That's your suffering. Shift your focus to the second circle. That's your freedom. Step to practice surrender without passivity. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving up the illusion. You still show up. You still fight for what matters. But you release the demand that things must go your way. You stop bargaining with life. You start flowing with it. Think of a sailor in a storm. He doesn't curse the wind. He adjusts the sails. That's what stoic control is. It's not domination. It's navigation. Step 3, take radical ownership. Ask yourself, every day, what can I do right now with what I have? Not what you wish you had. Not what others should do. Just you. Here? Now. That's power. And when you live that way calmly, intentionally, with your focus locked on what is yours, you become something rare, unshakable. People will try to pull you into their storms. You'll stay in your center. The world will throw chaos. You'll remain composed. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understood the boundary between what's yours and what's not. And you're done crossing that line. So let me ask you, what have you been trying to control that was never yours? And what would happen if you stopped? Would the world fall apart? Or would you finally begin to feel peace? You already know the answer. So release the fight. Reclaim your focus. Because the mind that stops trying to control the world becomes the mind that finally controls itself. And that, my friend, is the beginning of true strength. You fear death, but not a meaningless life. Ask yourself something right now. If you knew you had 1 year left to live, what would you change? Would you still scroll mindlessly? Would you still put off your dreams? Would you still silence your voice to keep the peace? Would you still spend your days doing things that drain your soul? Most people say they fear death, but that's not quite true. What they really fear is dying with regrets. And yet, without realizing it, they live in ways that make those regrets inevitable. They stay in jobs that hollow them out. They avoid risks that might wake them up. They sacrifice their values to fit in. They delay joy for someday that never arrives. That is not life. That's survival. That's autopilot. That's what the Stoics feared most, not the end of life, but a life that never began. Marcus Aurelius said, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." And yet most people don't begin. They exist in routines, masks, and noise. And when they finally stop, when the noise clears, they look around and whisper, "Is this all there is?" It doesn't have to be. But it starts with a question most people are too afraid to ask. Am I really living or just not dying? Let that sink in. You've been gifted a finite number of days. And no one, not even you, knows how many are left. You might have 50 years. Or 5. Or 5 days. But that's not the scary part. The scary part is waking up at the end and realizing you never actually live. So let's talk about what it means to live. It's not just breath in your lungs. It's presence in your moments. It's meaning in your choices. It's courage in your decisions. It's love that's real, work that matters, and days that feel like they belong to you. And that kind of life doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. It happens when you stop waiting for permission. It happens when you stop fearing the unknown more than you fear regret. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who worked every day for 40 years. Same schedule, same goals, save for retirement. Delay joy, delay travel, delay everything. At 65, he finally made it, retired, had money, had time. But something was missing. His health was gone. His curiosity had faded. His relationships had withered. He had spent decades preparing to live, only to realize life had passed him by. He didn't die at 80. He died at 30 the moment he stopped choosing alibis. Don't let that be you. Stop treating life like a waiting room. Stop saving your best self for a someday that isn't promised. The Stoics practiced memento mori, the remembrance of death, not to be morbid, but to be alert. They meditated on mortality to awaken urgency. Because when you face death daily, you live differently. You speak more honestly. You hug more deeply. You waste less time. You stop postponing the things that matter and you start saying no to the things that don't. Think about this. If you knew your time was short, what would you do differently? Would you finally forgive? Would you finally speak your truth? Would you finally walk away from what drains you? Would you finally create, love, explore, live? Then why aren't you doing it now? The fear of death is only dangerous when it's unconscious. But when it's conscious, when you remember that you are mortal, it becomes a gift. Because it wakes you up. It makes you fierce about your time. It makes you deliberate about your choices. It makes you humble, grateful, awake. So here's your practice. Every morning, say it aloud, I can leave life today. Not to panic yourself. To purify your perspective. Then ask, if this was my last day, would I be proud of how I spent it? If the answer is no, don't waste time fixing the world. Fix your alignment. You don't have to quit your job or move to the mountains. You just have to stop delaying what makes you feel alive. Dance. Speak. Build. Laugh. Create something real. Love without holding back. Say no to what numbs you. Say yes to what stirs you. Do the small thing today that makes you proud tomorrow. Not to escape death, but to meet it without regret. You want to live fully. Then stop fearing the inevitable and start fearing the avoidable. Because death is guaranteed. But a wasted life, that's optional. You can either live carefully and die quietly, or you can live clearly and die complete. Not because you had more time, but because you used the time you had. So, don't just fear the end. Fear living like it will never come. And then do something about it. Today, face the silence, because that's where you'll find yourself. Try this. Sit alone in a quiet room. No phone. No music. No voices. Just you, your breath, and the sound of nothing. How long before you feel restless? How long before you reach for something, anything to escape the silence? Most people can't make it more than a few minutes. They call it boredom. But it's not boredom. It's fear. Not of the silence itself, but of what the silence reveals. Because in that stillness, there's no distraction left to shield you from yourself. All the unresolved pain, all the doubts you've buried, all the truths you've ignored, they start to rise like smoke from a fire you thought had died. And that's where the real work begins. The Stoics knew this. They didn't fear silence. They used it. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, people try to get away from it all, to the country, to the beach, to the mountains. You always wish you could too. But you can get away from it anytime you like by going within. Going within. That's the journey most people avoid their entire lives. Because it's easier to stay busy, to keep scrolling, to drown in noise. But here's the paradox. The more you run from silence, the louder your inner chaos becomes. You might not hear it during the day, when you're surrounded by tasks and distractions. But at night, when things go quiet, it comes back. And the voice says, "Are you really okay? Is this who you want to be? What are you running from?" That voice isn't there to punish you. It's there to wake you up. Because the truth is, your deepest clarity lies in silence. Your truest self lives beneath the noise. And you can't meet that self if you're always running from stillness. There's a study from 2014. Psychologists place people alone in a room with no distractions. Just them and their thoughts for 15 minutes. The result? Many found it unbearable. And some chose to give themselves mild electric shocks rather than sit quietly with their own mind. That's how addicted we've become to distraction. But what happens if you stop? If you sit long enough, the waves of discomfort pass. The noise settles. And something incredible emerges: clarity. You begin to see your thoughts not as facts, but as patterns. You realize your anxiety isn't just about work, it's about your need for control. You see that your sadness isn't just about what happened, it's about the story you keep telling yourself about it. And slowly you reclaim your power. Because silence doesn't weaken you. It reveals you. So, how do you begin? Start small. 5 minutes a day. No phone. No music. No stimulation. Just sit. Breathe. Let whatever rises rise. You don't have to fix it. Just watch. Be the observer. You might cry. You might laugh. You might want to run. Don't. Stay. This is your training ground. The Stoics called it philosophical solitude, not isolation, but engagement with the self. Marcus Aurelius did it. Seneca did it. Epictetus taught it. And they weren't doing it for peace. They were doing it for truth. Because once you can sit with your truth, no one can use it against you. You become unshakable, not because life stops throwing storms at you, but because you've learned to find stillness within the storm. Here's the deeper reason this matters. If you don't know who you are in silence, you'll build your identity through noise. You'll adopt other people's values. You'll chase their goals. You'll mold yourself to fit in. And slowly, you'll forget who you were before the world told you who to be. But in the quiet, you remember. You return. You reclaim. Because silence is not emptiness. It's a mirror. And only those who are brave enough to look into it can truly know themselves. Let me challenge you. Tonight, before bed, turn everything off. Lights, phone, TV. Sit in complete silence. Breathe slowly. No distractions. And ask yourself just one question. What am I avoiding? Don't try to answer it. Just let the question live in you. And if it brings discomfort, good. That means you're getting closer to something real. Because the truth doesn't always shout. It whispers. And the only way to hear it is to be quiet long enough to listen. So be still. The world is loud enough. What you need now is depth. Not more information. Not more advice. Just stillness. Presence. Breath. Because once you learn to be with yourself, without needing to escape, you'll never fear loneliness again. And that, my friend, is what makes you powerful in a world addicted to noise. This isn't a lesson, it's a choice. You've heard the truths. You face the mirror. You've been reminded harshly, honestly, that time is short, comfort is seductive, and your peace is your responsibility. So, now what? Do you close this video and go back to the same patterns? Do you nod your head, feel inspired for 5 minutes, and then reach for your phone again? Or do you let something shift? Because here's what no one tells you. Breakthroughs don't happen when you learn something new. They happen when you finally act on what you've always known. You already know what's skilling your potential. You already know what you've been avoiding. You already know the person you were meant to become. The question is, will you finally stop postponing your own life? That's not a rhetorical question. It's a real one. And you answer not with words, but with how you live this next hour. The Stoics believed that philosophy was theory, was action. Seneca didn't write essays for applause. He wrote to himself in the dark, between political chaos and personal pain. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal for publication. He wrote to discipline his mind in the middle of war. They didn't speak of resilience. They practiced it. They didn't talk about courage. They lived it every day without waiting for ideal conditions. That's what made them strong. And now, it's your turn. Not to become perfect. Not to optimize every habit. But to step out of hiding. Because you know where hiding leads. To quiet frustration. To unspoken dreams. To a life that feels full on the outside and hollow within. Enough of that. You're not here to be efficient. You're here to be awake. And to be awake means one thing. Responsibility. You take responsibility for your time, for your attention, for your reactions, for the energy you bring into rooms, for the life you are building or avoiding. No one is coming to rescue you. No one is going to hand you clarity. No one will wake you up if you keep choosing to stay asleep. You're either one. You've always been the one. You don't need more motivation. You need a decision. A quiet, powerful decision that says, enough. I'm done waiting. I'm done blaming. I'm done distracting myself from what I know I must do. So what will you do today? Not next week. Not after you read one more book or buy one more course. Now, will you have the uncomfortable conversation? Will you write the first page? Will you put your phone down and walk outside, breathe deeply, feel the wind, and remember that you're alive? Because that's the whole point of this message. To remember. To remember that you're not just a 2-2 list, a title, a role. You are a living, breathing, mortal human being, one with power, wisdom, and choice. And that choice, it's staring you in the face. Keep living half minus asleep. Or begin fully, wildly, consciously now. Let them say you changed overnight. Let them be confused when the old version of you disappears. Let them feel the shift when you stop reacting and start creating. You don't need to explain it. Just live it. And here's the final stoic truth. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. You've already heard the lessons. Now become the lesson. Live in a way that reminds others it's possible to be strong and kind, calm and fierce, still and driven. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to prove anything. Your life is the evidence. So don't. Live with intention. Speak with clarity. Act with courage. Build something real, not for the world's applause, but for your own peace. And if this message reached you, if something in your heart stirred, don't keep it to yourself. Send it to someone who's lost in the fog. Send it to someone who's ready, but doesn't know it yet. Because this world doesn't need more noise. It needs awakened souls. It needs people like you, no longer sleeping, no longer hiding, no longer waiting, but wide awake, walking forward one quiet, powerful step at a time. We are currently giving away a free ebook, 12 Stoic lessons that will change your life. To receive your gift, simply follow the channel and leave a comment that says, I have followed, or I would like to receive the gift. We will reply with the download link directly below your comment.